The long simmering tension between Cameron and Jim Jones finally boiled over, and this time there was no hiding behind jokes or subtle shade. What used to feel like distant coldness between former brothers turned into open hostility, with both sides sounding irritated, emotional, and fed up. Their shared history runs deep, tied to Dipset's rise, internal power struggles, money arguments, and years of pride being swallowed instead of addressed. When problems like that get buried, they don't disappear, they grow. And now they're spilling out in public for everyone to see.
Cam used to be scared to death of them niggas to the point he didn't want to come outside. I didn't understand it because I'm from downtown. You heard? We had our own set of killers.
The Rap Cat Podcast.
Dame impact in Harlem was nothing. Not to say it like that. Dame came up under hustlers that impact was it. He was a little dude when it came to hustling in Harlem. He wasn't not no Rich Porter, none of that type of. He wanted to hustle. He wanted to hustle for niggas like Rich Porter and shit like that. Dame from the East Side. When the niggas on the East Side is different from the niggas on the West Side. Now for the East Side, Dame was a big deal to us because we were little when he was coming from the West Side. Little car, jewelry, and all that. So when you're young, he's looking like Rich Porter, but in reality, no, he was like this nigga, go to the store, nigga, take a couple grams, get out of here.
The Rap Cat Podcast.
When he canceled out the street side of it and go into the music business of it, what was his impact with Dipset at that time?
He didn't have no impact with Dipset. Dipset, we made our impact on our own.
Cameron came with sharp delivery and cutting sarcasm, the kind that's meant to embarrass, not just criticize. That tone suggested he stopped caring about fixing anything a long time ago. In hip-hop, sarcasm signals disrespect on a different level because it says someone isn't even worth anger anymore. Jim Jones heard that loud and clear, and his response came with raw emotion instead of jokes. His energy sounded tense and confrontational, like someone who felt cornered and wasn't backing down. That shift changed everything. The streets noticed immediately. This didn't sound like playful back and forth or old friends venting. It sounded like two men reopening old wounds that never healed. Fans started pulling up old footage, interviews, and Dipset moments, trying to trace when things truly went left. Looking back, the cracks were always there. Leadership issues, ego clashes, and different visions slowly pulled them apart while the money was flowing. Once the money slowed, the resentment got louder.
When y'all came over to Rockefeller, did y'all bring a certain energy that kind of ruffled the feathers of like state property and people like that?
When we came over to Rockefeller, it was all love. Everybody in the studios doing music, state property, Fleek and them, diplomats. Everybody was doing music there. That shit ain't started until they went through all that damn
Could you else say Cam took over the rock, huh?
I mean, in that sense,
The Rap Cat Podcast.
Mace was talented. He was a dancer. And Mace didn't excel at the rapping really to after high school, they started getting on and shit like that, and then he excelled and started getting on first and signed first, and then now help Cam and everybody get on and shit like that. But as far as making a name for themselves in the street, they had no name in the street like that. You know what I mean?
Big L.
Right. Big L had a name for himself. He was rapping early. He was signed early. He had some dangerous ass brothers. They was uptown, really shaking and moving and shit like that. You dig? And that's not my part of town. I was uptown. Yeah, Cam used to be scared to death of them niggas to the point he didn't want to come outside. I didn't understand it because I'm from downtown. You heard? We had our own set of killers.
What really alarmed people was how the language escalated. The talk stopped being about respect and started hinting at physical confrontation. That's when things turned ugly. In hip-hop, once words move toward real-world challenges, the situation leaves entertainment territory. The streets can tell when someone is joking and when someone sounds serious, and both Cameron and Jim Jones sounded serious. This wasn't about music anymore. It was about pride, credit, and feeling disrespected by someone who used to be family. When ego takes control, old loyalty disappears fast. That's why the energy felt so unstable. It wasn't planned or polished. It was emotional, and emotional beef always carries risk. As the shots kept coming, the culture started realizing this wasn't just a disagreement, it was the collapse of a brotherhood. Cameron and Jim Jones weren't arguing over one comment or one interview, they were battling over the past. Who really led Dipset? Who put in the most work? Who sacrificed? And who benefited? Those questions lived quietly for years, and now they were being answered loudly and publicly. Cameron's approach felt cold and deliberate. He spoke like someone who had already accepted that the relationship was dead. That's dangerous territory, because once reconciliation is off the table, people say things they can't take back. His words aim to shrink Jim Jones's role, framing him as someone exaggerating his contribution. In hip-hop, downplaying someone's impact is a deep insult, especially when shared success is involved. Jim Jones reacted differently. His response carried frustration and anger, sounding like someone tired of being underestimated. He spoke from a place of emotion, not calculation. That emotional edge is what made the situation feel volatile. When frustration turns into challenges, the line between talk and action starts to blur. The streets caught that instantly. Fans split hard. Some felt Cameron was always the mastermind and face of Dipset. Others believed Jim Jones held things down when everyone else moved on. That divide poured gasoline on the fire. Everyone picked a side, and every reaction added pressure. What made everything worse was how public it became. Instead of private conversations or behind-the-scenes resolution, everything unfolded online. Once pride gets wrapped in public opinion, backing down feels impossible. Nobody wants to look weak in front of millions. Ego traps people, and trapped egos make reckless decisions. The streets don't enjoy watching former brothers self-destruct, but they understand why it happens. Money changes relationships. Success changes expectations. And when trust breaks, even family can turn into rivals. That's exactly how this situation started to feel. Not friendly competition, but genuine animosity. As the beef continued, people started asking the deeper question: how did it ever reach this point? The answer sits in unresolved tension built over time. Dipset wasn't just a rap crew. It was a movement, a brand, and a hierarchy. When leadership roles aren't clear, resentment builds quietly. Cameron and Jim Jones had different ideas about authority, loyalty, and recognition. Those differences never got settled. They were ignored while success masked the problem. Once the spotlight shifted, those issues resurfaced with force. Cameron stepped away and focused on his own lane. Jim Jones stayed active, pushing forward and keeping the Dipset name alive through his own efforts. Both believe they carried the weight. Both feel overlooked. That mutual frustration is explosive. The streets also recognize this beef as part of a bigger hip-hop pattern. Groups fall apart when the momentum slows. Unity fades. Ego replaces teamwork. People stop building together and start counting who did more. That comparison never ends cleanly. The talk of fighting shocked fans because it showed how personal things had become. When words aren't enough anymore, emotions are running hot. Hip-hop history is full of moments where unchecked beef crossed into tragedy. That history made this situation uncomfortable to watch. Social media added fuel to everything. Every clip went viral. Every comment got dissected. There was no room to cool off. Once something was said, it couldn't be unsaid. That constant pressure pushed both sides to double down instead of stepping back. The real danger wasn't just what had already been said, but what could happen next if pride stayed unchecked. Ego blinds judgment, and blind judgment has ended careers and friendships before. The streets recognized the warning signs early. Stories like this hit hard because they expose how fast brotherhood can turn into rivalry in hip-hop. One minute it's history and shared wins, the next minute it's resentment, pride, and old wounds getting ripped back open. When emotions sit unresolved for years, it doesn't take much for everything to explode in public. What really stands out is how ego changes the way people remember the past. Success gets counted differently. Credit starts getting argued. Respect becomes conditional. In this culture, once people feel overlooked or minimized, every old issue suddenly matters again. That's when arguments stop being about today and start being about everything that was never settled. The streets don't just listen to what's said, they feel the tone. They know when someone is joking and they know when someone is done holding back. Once voices sound emotional instead of controlled, the situation becomes unpredictable. That's when people stop enjoying the drama and start worrying about where it might lead. Another hard truth is that public platforms make everything worse. Once beef plays out online, pride gets wrapped up in audience reaction. Backing down feels like losing. Apologizing feels impossible. The internet doesn't allow cooling off time. It demands constant response. That pressure pushes people deeper into corners they didn't plan to stand in. This situation also reminds everyone how fragile legacy really is. Years of work can be overshadowed by a few heated moments. Fans don't just remember the wins, they remember the fallout. When former allies start tearing each other down, the damage sticks longer than the music. Hip-hop has seen this story too many times. Groups break apart, trust disappears, ego replaces communication, and once respect gets questioned publicly, rebuilding it becomes almost impossible. That's why moments like this feel heavy, because they don't just affect the people involved, they reshape how entire eras are remembered. At the end of the day, the streets don't pick sides based on noise, they pick sides based on patterns. Consistency matters. How someone moves under pressure matters. And once the dust settles, the culture decides what sticks and what fades. If you stayed locked in through this entire breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story the culture won't stop talking about.